Hey folks, it's that time of year where we try to tie up our loose ends, and a bunch of my loose ends on the review spectrum happen to be Jane Austen related, so I thought I would try combining all of these things into a 4-in-1 review. We'll see how it goes. First up is Persuasion, the novel. I just reread it for the first time since I was 15 or 16, and wow, what a difference a few years make in how a book affects you. It's too bad I read so many classics like this when I was too young to fully appreciate them, because there's really a big difference between mental comprehension, mental understanding of the words and the language and the story, and emotional understanding of the feelings that the characters are expressing. There are just certain things that a 16-year-old, even a well-read one, is not going to grasp as fully as an adult will, because the scope of life experiences that they can draw from in relating to the characters is just not as wide. Persuasion is a more thoughtful, somber book, but not without the classic Austen wit and keen social observations. Plus, Anne Elliot is such a compelling character who I sympathize with intensely. I'm quite familiar with the 95 and 07 adaptations of Persuasion, having seen each a few times, and my reaction to both is similar. There are a couple things I like, and there are some other things that I don't care for. Those things that I always react negatively to, fortunately, are not in the book, so I can say pretty confidently that I like the book best, and I think it's one of the best books that Austen wrote. Number 2, a while ago my mom and I watched the 2009 BBC adaptation of Emma. I'm 95% sure I watched this version in 2009 or 2010, but I remembered very little from it for some reason, and so it was like seeing it for the first time again. And I have to say, my mom and I were both quite happy with it. I especially loved the way it took the time to flesh out smaller characters like Mr. Woodhouse, Miss Bates, Jane Fairfax, who in other adaptations are kind of one-dimensional. Yes, Emma Woodhouse is exasperating at times, but that's how it's supposed to be with this story. She has to make her mistakes before she can learn from them, so you suffer through the cringe-inducing scenes, and there are several in this version, and they are so drawn out. But you suffer through it because it's part of the process, and you know that there's going to be a satisfying conclusion in the end that makes it all worth it. They did a good, thorough job of showing the different facets of Emma's relationship with Mr. Knightley, and I was so pleased to see that they gave his brother John more than the usual amount of screen time, because I love him, so this was a good version. Number 3, my mom and I watched Love and Friendship, the very recent adaptation of Lady Susan. Now this was a very different experience for me because I've never read Lady Susan and didn't know anything about the story or the characters aside from what I'd seen in advertisements for the movie. In hindsight, I wish I'd just waited and read Lady Susan first, because then I would have been more prepared for the tone and the kinds of characters that we see depicted. As it was, I didn't really know what to make of it. I can't tell you if Love and Friendship was a good or bad adaptation until I read Lady Susan, which I do intend to do, but I can say I didn't really enjoy the movie. It had too many distasteful characters for me, and it's made in a quirky style that, if you know zip about the story, is gonna make it a little hard to follow. Speaking of quirky, number 4, we just watched Pride and Prejudice and Zombies. Yes, it was ridiculous, but it was ridiculous in a fun, bombastic way. You definitely have to have an open mind with this one. If you are completely opposed to zombies, it's not for you. And I guess by the same token, if you are completely opposed to Pride and Prejudice, it's not for you either. I did read the book years ago, and I wasn't too impressed with its execution, but I do think the movie did a better job of weaving in the zombie stuff so that neither that nor the classic Pride and Prejudice elements felt shoot in. It's not very deep, it's got some bizarre sequences, several characters could have used more development. I wasn't crazy about it. But I didn't hate it either. It ended up being an entertaining way to pass a couple hours. And my mom got a big kick out of it. So those are my 4 condensed Jane Austen reviews. I hope you enjoyed that. Maybe I'll do it again sometime. And if you have any thoughts on anything that I mentioned, go ahead and share them. Thanks for watching. Bye!